One time I was just myself, and one time I was looking for a sort of 2-person long let. So yeah, but they are again absolutely kind of thriving around the city. So
yeah, there's accommodation has much improved from 95 and 2005, and particularly in terms of being on site. So our current thought is that all programming, including the parties, will actually happen within the campus.
Yeah, which is obviously a change from last time where that was right. in the town. So yeah, okay. So I've got the chat up, Virginia. So is it okay if I just read Farah's question?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You're not Virginia.
No.
Okay. So Farah says, a question, Ray Access. At Eterbium, we realised that the one piece of access that we were just expecting people to cover themselves was scooters. We decided to absorb it and pay for the scooters. Given the distances that have to be covered, could Glasgow 2024 commit to the same thing? It is really very odd that we don't charge for any other support, but do for this one. Yeah, I believe that has changed since then, and that is a cost that we usually take on. It was certainly a cost that's been taken on at the last couple of Worldcons that I've been at. The issue with Dublin was obviously the great mobility fire scooter of Ireland. But I believe that that's a cost that we have factored in. And in terms of numbers, we know that an average sized Worldcon, which is about 4,500, we're actually going for slightly higher than that, takes about 60 mobility scooters and 4 or 5 wheelchairs. So mobility scooters are in much more demand. So that's the kind of ballpark of what we are looking at. It's not a cost I would expect members to pay. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and good question as well, because I think it's something that, you know, having done facilities before, it really is a low level worry for a lot of people. One of the other things that I would add to the mobility question about using mobies around the premises. So the areas outside have low-lipped pavements so that you can move off and on them fairly easily. It's sloped. We know that if you travel between the Crown Plaza and the convention inside, there is a choke point where there is a sort of one of those sort of elevators that takes you down sort of 2 meters that you drive a mobility scooter onto, and then it takes you downwards. That was a choke point for 2005, and we cannot see that changing. It is actually easier to move outside the venue and go around the building, but obviously that is difficult for people in a different way. We are intending to put up a covered walkway and also to make sure that that is signposted very, very clearly so that that will help that movement. We realise that that is offsetting rather than solving, but that is unfortunately, it's a geographical problem within the building, but we're very kind of aware of it because it's been a problem in the past, and it's most certainly going to be something that is there again in the future. There's no change, no intention to re-landscape that part of the walkway, unfortunately. So yeah. Cool. Let's just wait for some questions. Oh, what other kind of news can we give people? Oh, so if you haven't done it already, and I know Farah has because she was involved in this, is you should check out our YouTube channel. We've been doing YouTube events once a month at the moment. Again, we're trying to include as many different voices as we possibly can. We've had author panels, we've had editor discussion panels, we've had a couple of talks, and we've got one a month planned for the next few months. So you should head on over there and have a look at them. Okay, so we have some more questions. Does Glasgow have a Tim Hortons?
Yes. There are 3. Well, depends where you go. There are. I'm just having a look at the map here. There's one near me as well. There's two in the city centre, and some of the external the shopping centres outside Silverburn, and then there's one near me in Paisley.
Cool.
But two in the city centre is probably the ones that you're likely to go to if you're coming to the convention.
And added a link to the chat if you want to if you want to head there directly, John. So Declan asks a great question, which is what's the next con you will have a fan table at? I've enjoyed helping out at the fan tables over the past few years. So the next convention that we expect to be at in person is probably NovaCon, if it takes place. And it looks as if it will be, which is in Buxton. I know it's a B. And we will also be at Worldcon in DC. But we also have virtual fan tables as well. So you're always welcome to help out on those. I'm aware, Declan, that might be slightly more tricky for you. So yeah, probably the next in-person one is going to be NovaCon. And then we're hoping again to return, you know, as a fan table, given legal and social restrictions. And obviously we're going to be very careful about that. And we also want to be quite careful about making sure that volunteers on the tables are protected as well. So, you know. Buxton, says Farah, good beer. So thank you.
We will have a presence, if not a fan table, at next week's British Science Fiction Association and Science Fiction Foundation AGM Minicon next Saturday online. I don't know when our next virtual fan table is. I know it's not for the next couple of weeks because Marcine, who coordinates our fan tables, didn't need any other convention than Punctuation 2 specifically pushed to the most recent newsletter.
Yeah,
so
true.
I think we may have at least a few weeks off from fan tabling.
Yeah. And Ruth has also added that there's a Krispy Kreme stand at the Buchanan Gardens if you'd prefer that to Tim Hortons.
Buchanan Galleries, yeah.
But Glasgow has many other fine donut shops as well.
Yes, yes. And again, if you haven't been since 2005, the area just above the convention centre, not Finniston, but the road that sort of goes straight has kind of become much more of a sort of boutique-y foodie road. There's really, really good coffee shops up there. There's a lot of pubs. There's some themed pubs. There's a really grand sushi bar. It's delicious. So whilst that isn't, I wouldn't, again, I think we have to be a little bit cautious when we say walking distance. It's, you know, how far rather than how far can you move. So that is over the railway line. So over that very long bridge that you may, again, remember, but which is a little bit tricky to navigate. But then about another 200, 300 meters up the road, you get to this long stream of shops. So easy to reach, dependent on how quickly you can move.
It'd probably take me under 15 minutes to walk from the SEC, but then I'm reasonably fit, or a 5-minute taxi journey.
And there's a taxi rank directly outside the SEC, outside the Armadillo, and that's a pickup point as well. There's also a bus station just to the right of the Armadillo, which is the auditorium. So, so the chat's just talking about donuts now.
The other thing, which I'm hoping will still be the case, but it has been for the last few decades, is that taxis in Glasgow are pretty cheap in comparison to London or Edinburgh or most other cities.
Very friendly as well. They'll talk your ear off. So Ruth says this is important information. We need our supply. Yeah. You see, for me, it's the coffee. The coffee it's no coffee, no bid chair.
Speaking as someone who bought 3 dozen donuts in Dublin, I feel like it's important that we know what our options are for Glasgow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I tell you what, Shana, if people have questions, type them into the chat, but do you want to launch your thing?
Sure.
whilst the great donut debate, which is now becoming Dublin versus Glasgow, none of that.
Well, you know, before I get to what I'm actually here for, why don't I address the more important point that Declan brings up about Dublin selection? I did in fact go to what had been recommended to me as the best donut shop in town. Not that I can now remember its name, but I could look it up quite easily for you if required.
If it was Dublin, it was the Rolling Donut.
That was probably it then. But they were excellent.
I miss you, Dublin. I miss you, Bug. My partner is in Dublin, so that's yeah. Oh.
So this is the amazing new version of our logo that Sarah Felix has generously made for today's event. And by today's event, I mean the next 2 weeks event. Because what we're doing today is launching a contest. It's the Glasgow in 2024 question contest. Now, it's not as if you don't really have lots of opportunities to ask Glasgow questions, but we could actually really use a lot more of them. Let me give you a couple of reasons for this. First, we have Team Info, a group of 4 amazing volunteers who have stepped up to be the people to answer our public-facing info email address. This is great, but would really like them to be able to get up to speed working with each other, and that's very hard when almost all they ever receive is spam. There's only so much spam requires in the way of articulate reply. No. There's nothing at all that spam requires in the way of articulate reply. So in order, one thing is to give our team info, of which half of them are here. I see both Pat and Mathieu are here. It's something to do is really understating it. To give them an active opportunity to work together when there's a reasonable volume of email coming through, more than say, you know, 1 a month of actual real content. 2, we're interested in completely rejigging, reworking, reconceptualizing what are the questions we should be answering as a bid, especially on our website, in FAQs. I mean, because we could just do all the usual sorts of questions and copy them off of other Worldcons, but it's really interesting to sort of push the boundaries. What are the other things we should be considering that we're not? And what are other directions to take this in? Next thing is that even in addition to Team Info working together, it would be nice to give them something fun and entertaining to read. So much as I'm expecting the majority of questions to come in to be straightforward, serious questions about the bid, we will in fact be giving out a prize for the best fictional question. So for all your pressing needs to know, you know, how many Kelpies will fit in our auditorium, or, you know, what is our contingency plan in case of a Kraken attack? So
oh no, I'm gonna have to add these to the Worldcon question time.
yes, you will, Esther. Because of course, every legitimate entry to our contest that comes in, I mean, all questions that come in have to abide by the code of conduct. So, you know, anything that doesn't, which hopefully will be done, hopefully they'll all be code of conduct conforming. We will all have to come up as a bid. We will have to come up with answers to all of these questions, including, you know, potentially Kelpies, Krakens, and whatever other hazards await us in the way of fictional questions.
We've got one who's come in from Farah already, so, and it's important too.
So if I can find where'd chat go. So in order, feel free to ask questions here. However, if you want to officially enter the contest, you need to use the form, which I am pasting into chat here. The posts for this, the blog post and social media the blog post at least has just gone live, and social media will be pushing this today as well. This contest is on for the next 2 weeks. So ask your questions, lots of questions. We have generously capped your questions at 20, trying to bridge the balance between please ask us lots of questions, but no spam, and would like to give everyone else a fair chance. So if you keep coming up with questions in the next few weeks, do keep coming back and asking them. There will be prizes. The prizes are official bid stickers that we will be sending out. We've committed to awarding the prizes no later than mid-August, but the team is pretty sure that in fact we'll have it all together by some point later in July. And I think those are all the important details about the question contest. We hope we get lots and lots of questions, because we could really use them to think about lots of different aspects of the bid, our website, what we want to be prepared to answer. Esther presenting the bid at SMOFCon and other venues. And we would like to keep our team info happy and entertained. So thank you.
Amazing. And I think on a sort of slightly serious note on that, there's an adage in games design that games designers, who are quite a limited bunch of people at the moment, often design for themselves. And that means that they end up designing games that gamers like, that are games. And it's a bit of a vicious circle, so it actually stops creativity. And I think this is really similar with questions, that very often we aren't necessarily asking the right questions that will help people both understand our intentions, our organization, kind of what we want, what we can give, but that also are sometimes answered by the answer, oh, well, that's a sort of fanish thing. And that's not what we want. You know, we want to be able to answer questions that people can feel unafraid to ask, you know, and that might be, for example, we had one at the recent All Staff, which was, what is ASFA? You know, somebody just mentioned ASFA. I also realized I was using the word filing and not explaining what filing is. And I think I might have just done it again. So filing, yes, again, is the paperwork that we submit to the World Science Fiction Society, in which we register our intention to become a Worldcon, and we then are then put forward to a vote. So we do these things all the time. We use these words, and there's always every Worldcon produces what is a Worldcon, what are the questions that are often asked, but we're really sort of thinking about this as a welcoming thing. So again, Shana, one of the things Shana didn't mention is that one of the things that volunteers are doing is that they're also, what's the name of the group? What did you call it at the end?
Clear Language Group.
The Clear Language Group, yeah. So we use a lot of Fanish words that may be problematic or may just not indicate what a thing is. Fanish Inquisition, that's one, which in recent years has been changed to Worldcon question time. Cafe Clatch, another one. It's a nice word, but might it be better to say a drink with an author and meet the author, you know? So we want to kind of encourage this kind of question as well, so that it's not just us answering questions for ourselves. Again, you know, we want to make sure that people feel welcome, and language is that barrier. Exclusivity in language is part of that. So yeah, so as well as the Kelpies, and I think it's the typical thing that, Farah, you appear to be providing the answer that we already need as well. It's like, ask the question and start to provide the solution. So wonderful. But yes, you know, there's a lot of there are a lot of things that we would like to know that people want to know, I think. So yeah, and again, Ruth has asked what ASFA is, and it has been answered in chat by Marguerite. It is the Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Artists. So it's the sort of artists branch of science fiction people that they can join. And there's also a link as well. Okay, anything else? Does anybody want to know anything else? I mean, I'm more than happy to go back to buying John Coxon a beer for the scavenger hunt, but we're also quite happy to be put on the spot.
Or go back to the Kelpies. Yeah.
I'm sure we didn't actually answer that.
We didn't. Well, no. I mean, what do you reckon the volume of the armadillo is? So we got the armadillo, potentially Hall 4, the new space.
What volume for Kelpies? I think the Hydro would be best, particularly given its name.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I think portals.
With a bowl shaped. Yeah.
When you go into the building, when you go into the main conference centre and you walk to that new glass elevator at the end that goes up one story, I reckon that's a portal.
Yeah.
We're fairly sure that that's, you know, we're going to have to use that elevator for certain things. So yeah. Gotta watch it. So.
Ruth has a good question.
I know it's early days, but can you tell us about some of your plans for outreach or perhaps partnerships? Yeah, now I kind of alluded to this, so I don't want to mention too many names at the moment, because we need these things to happen. We have a focus on local groups first, and then we will be sort of expanding outwards a bit, and we're speaking to some of those at the moment. As an example of some of the indicative work we are doing to try to build outreach now, because I'm an academic, I'm in the sort of, and I know Ruth, you know this, but I'm kind of in that useful position where I can reach out to other groups and do slightly tangential things. So one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is I'm working with the University of Glasgow to put together a research bid that is going to stage a series of events. I think it's called The Future of Scottish Voices, again with underrepresented voices, which includes the LGBTQA+ community, particularly in Glasgow, and also the Scottish BAME Society. This is the name that they've given themselves at the moment, so that's the word that I'm going to use. We are hoping to bring some of those things forward, so perhaps they'll be with the university, but they are also opportunities that we see as being able to start to work with these communities and be able to sort of discuss things. So again, yeah, I'm being cagey, but I'm hoping that we can make announcements as soon as they happen. What I don't want to do is I don't want to say, oh, we're working with this group, and then that group to be like, well, hang on a minute, you know. But it's something that's really on our minds. And I think, again, Ruth, I know that you've got a lot of connections with people like Shoreline of Infinity, local groups producing events. We're very conscious that Worldcon sometimes kind of parachute in and they shoot off again. And certainly the work that I'm trying to do with Glasgow and then kind of onwards through Worldcon is leave a more visible legacy. And I know that's really hard. And it's very difficult at this stage because it's, you know, big promises, big prizes, you know, but I want to make realistic promises about the things that we can do, or at least, you know, set out realistic things. In terms of, for those of you who might know outreach in a slightly different way, in the outreach that we've done before, giving out free science fiction books, there's about 3,000 in my cellar. So I have a whole load of free books, but at the moment that scheme is obviously not very practical. So we also, Glasgow Comic Con is an event where we've done outreach events at communities that are sort of parallel, but perhaps might not have heard of us. So, you know, a wider group of people who may be kind of going in and out to do a sort of more traditional cosplay or gate show. That's there. Whether or not that will happen again, I genuinely don't know, because again, that's much more to do with touching things and giving out things that people may not necessarily want to do. So yeah. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. Cool. We've had no children or cats, Shana. That's sad.
Well, I have no cats.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, well, Badger came through. Badger is my cat. Badger came through. Badger does not disturb me when I'm at this table because he knows that I'm working and he knows he'll be shoved unceremoniously onto the floor. If I were in another room, you wouldn't be able to see me. You would merely see a cat's bottom. So that's where Badger is. He is not here because he's actually relatively intelligent for a cat. So
I'm going to turn off the recording now, and then we can chat more informally if we wish.